Live from Studio 133, this is Austin Silvey, and you're listening to an Evening Sports Podcast Side Note, a segment or a separate section or segment of audio where I go in depth and talk about a burning topic or a hot topic in the world of sports outside of the original podcast format. And today I want to address and talk about paying student athletes. This has obviously been a very hot topic of discussion for what seems like an eternity now, but really it's picked up the past couple years where we've had, somebody at Northwestern, a player, come out and try to get a petition going or something. I don't remember all the specifics. It's been so long ago, but it's obviously become a hot topic. It's gaining more and more steam as time goes by and passes. So it's something that I think anybody in the realm of sports media is going to need to, I don't want to say need to, but at some point we'll have to address, because I think we're coming to a point where it's almost going to become inevitable that some form of payment for student athletes happens, whether you agree with it or not. So it's best now, I guess, if you're in the sports media realm, air your opinion about it, get it out there, talk about it, discuss it with people, just kind of get what you need to say off your chest about it. My personal view of it, I'm really not for it in its entirety. There's bits and pieces. I mean, I understand the athlete side of it. That, yes, why can't they make money off their likeness? I mean, that's why they discontinued the NCAA games, like basketball and football, baseball. They discontinued the NCAA franchise because players were being created in that game, not like create a player that you can do at your house and make people look, as close to real players as you can. Like, the actual company was making players look just like they do in real life to a degree, and just not giving their name on there due to NCAA rights and whatnot, and players weren't making any money off of that. Like, I get all that. That's why they discontinued it. But things like that. But the reason I'm against it more so than for it at all is it's really simple when you break it down and actually just think about it in its full context of what a student athlete is, what college is for, who the NCAA is, this, that, and the other. First and foremost, my biggest point against it is what is the point of college as an institution by itself? Like, why do you as a normal citizen go to college? You choose to go to college because you want to further your education. You want to gain some kind of knowledge degree that solidifies you in a certain field or industry where you can go get a career that you want. Like, if you want to be an engineer, you go to a college, i.e. like one close by, Clemson. You go and obtain an engineering degree, and therefore you can go get a better job somewhere that pays better. It enhances your career aspirations. If you have aspirations for a six-figure job, then you go get a degree, and if you want to make more, then maybe go get a master's. Like, there's reason you go to college to enhance your career prospects and get a higher level of education and make yourself more valuable in the eyes of an employer. Well, essentially, student athletes are doing the same thing, but most of them, at least, are pursuing, a lot of them, at least the higher level ones, and those are the ones we're really talking about playing when we break it down. We're not thinking about the four-string punter who sits on the bench of the football team or the rower for the rowing team. And that's not to demean what any of those people do, but let's be honest, those aren't, rowing and golf, those aren't monetizing sports. Those don't bring in any kind of revenue. So we're not talking about those people. We're talking about a select few in the three main, we're mostly talking about football and basketball, because baseball, you're allowed to be drafted straight out of high school. You can opt to go to college for 3 years, or you can opt to go into the draft and, be that, whatever happens, be that as it may. So really we're talking about two select sports with a select few athletes in each sport, and maybe one or two at the most at each school outside of your really elite schools. So, you're not talking about a huge group of people to begin with. But so most of these people, or the ones we're talking about playing at least, we'll stick to them since that's what this is really about. They're going to college to pursue a career. Whether it looks like that or not, you say, well, they have to go to college. If they want to go pro, they should be able to. Well, in football and basketball, the rules in place are not put in place by the NCAA. They're not put in place by these collegiate institutions. They are put in place by the NFL and by the NBA. The NBA requires that you're at least a year removed from high school. Not necessarily that you have to go to college, i.e. we just saw R.J. Hampton, a 5-star basketball recruit, decide that he was going to go play professional basketball in New Zealand for a year rather than go to college for a year. And that's a perfectly fine decision. I'm all for, players being able to make their own decisions, what they think is best for them. So in basketball, he's deciding to go a different route. So you just have to be removed for a year. But a lot of these players are going to decide to go to college for a year because it's just, you get to stay in the United States and it's just easier. And you get to go compete, at a high level for most of the elite ones. And, you're playing for something. And, maybe that 1 year of education is worth it to you. And you get your foot in the door, come back later in life, finish your degree, whatever. So most players are going to decide to go the college route anyways. In the NFL has it that you have to be out of school for 3 years. You have to go to college for at least 3 years to be eligible for the NFL. So that's the NFL and NBA's, respective requirements to obtain a career or have a chance at obtaining a career in that particular field. So if these elite athletes want to obtain a career in the NFL, if, a Trevor Lawrence at Clemson wants to obtain a career in the NFL, he knows the requirements ahead are 3 years of college. You have to be out of high school for 3 years, and then you can submit yourself to the NFL draft and try to obtain a career there. Those are the requirements set in place by the NFL, not the NCAA. So essentially, these elite athletes that are really the main ones we're talking about paying here. I know some people are saying you want to do, everybody pay every student athlete across the board. Well, that's not going to work. It's just not. There's Title IX, so you're going to have to pay everybody the same. And the rowing team, like I said earlier, golf that aren't bringing in revenue are going to make the same as a Trevor Lawrence and a Xavier Thomas and Justin Ross and T. Higgins and Travis Etienne, guys like that are actually contributing to a tremendous source of revenue for Clemson University. So that wouldn't work. There's no equity in that, and that's what Title IX is. It's gender equity and equity for all, basically. So, and it's not, I don't see why the NCAA should have to foot a bill like that anyways. And it's not like the NCAA is some high moral, all governing body. I mean, we know how inept the NCAA can be at their jobs, and that's another thing. Would you even want to entrust payment of players and stuff to the NCAA? They already can't handle what they do now, let alone trying to, run a monopoly of college players and making sure they all get paid equally and this, that, and the other, and then certain institutions will have more money to be able to do it, or it shouldn't be the institutions, the colleges, universities, or the NCAA's job to pay players if it comes to that at some point. They shouldn't have to foot that bill. It doesn't make any sense for them to have to do it because they're not the ones requiring these athletes to come to school. These athletes come to school to be student athletes, but because the elite ones are really, like I said, are the ones we're talking about playing, they come to school because it is required of them by the career or the industry that they want to have a career in. The NBA requires you're removed from high school for a year. The NFL requires that you are out of high school or in college for 3 years before you're eligible to go into the NFL draft. So the careers they're choosing to pursue are the reason they're coming to college, just like any other student. Now, yes, they have a bigger workload than most normal students. And it also, I mean, if it depends what, career you're going after. I mean, my wife, when she was a nursing student, I feel like her workload was just as much as a student athlete that, plays football going after a simple, sport communications degree. And I know it's not simple. There's a lot that goes into that kind of stuff. But, nursing versus sport and communications, obviously there's going to be a little more of a workload in nursing. And I mean, I feel like she worked just as hard as some student athletes did. And I know they got a busy schedule with having to do their studies and then going to practice and learning playbooks and all this, that, and the other. I'm not trying to demean that at all. I understand there's a lot that goes into all of it, but they're doing what is required of them to obtain or pursue the career that they want. It is the NFL and NBA who have implemented these rules, not the NCAA, not the institutions. They chose to go to college because this is a career they want to pursue, and this is the only way they can do that. Except in basketball, where it is a little different. Like I said, R.J. Hampton going overseas to play basketball. We've seen a few instances in the past of this, outside of the years that, students were allowed to be eligible for the NBA draft right out of high school. So while we're trying to make all these excuses for why student athletes should be paid, the main body or main premise of my whole thought process on this is the fact that they are making the decision to go to school to pursue the career that they want, that will eventually pay more than any other standard job just about in the United States. A lot of these elite athletes, and those are the ones that is the core group of this whole discussion, is the elite athletes. And that is a small percentage of all student athletes. They will all go on, barring injury, anything like that, a lot of them will go on to make more money than any of the students they went to school with that didn't participate in any kind of sport. So, I mean, so they have to endure maybe 1 year if you're playing basketball or football. You have to endure just 3 years of a free education. You get treated like a king at most of these, higher-end schools that most of the elite athletes are going to, like your Clemsons and Alabamas and Ohio States and Georgias and all that. You're getting treated very well. You're being compensated. You're getting a stipend. Your tuition's paid for. Books are paid for. You're fed really well. You are taken care of. So yeah, you've got to work a little bit harder than maybe your average student. But you know that going in. You know that, hey, I want to play in the NFL. What are the requirements? Well, the NFL has it out. You got to go to college for 3 years. Okay, well, what is involved in college? I know, what do I want to do? I want to be in the NFL. All right, do I even know what I want to do once football's over for me? And you go to a school, you find basically what is like a second major for the elite athletes because they want to be in the NFL. What's something I want to do afterwards? But they're making decisions to go to school knowing they want to play a professional sport, and that professional sport, NFL, NBA, has its requirements in place. And they know what they're getting into once they make that decision. Now, if they want to go work at Walmart for the rest of their lives, well, you don't have to go to school for that. You can go straight and work at a Walmart. But if they want to play football or professional football in the NFL, the requirements are laid out plain and simple. They know what is required of them. Now, if they can't handle it or they don't want to do that and think they deserve to make money while they're in college, I get that, because your average student can go work a summer job or can work a part-time job during school. They can do that. And for the student athlete to maintain amateurism and all that, there's always going to be a dark underbelly to sports. There just is. There's no way to fully get rid of anything. And for a player to get paid for their likeness or something, that's the side of the coin that I understand, and I guess I'm just more understanding to that side of the argument. Like if a player could get paid from a car dealership using their likeness for a commercial or something, you know, I don't really know how you institute something like that. It shouldn't be up to the NCAA or the institution to pay those bills, but something I've just kind of recently thought of, maybe a possibility could be like earn it. If you're going to school, if you want to be in the NBA and you're only going to school for a year, I'm sorry, you don't deserve to be paid. You're getting, everything's paid for you for really only 8 or 9 months, and then you're going to make millions of dollars. So, I mean, I don't see why you really deserve or need to be paid. So, like, you're getting fed, you got free housing, you're getting that free education, so if sports doesn't work out, you have something you can fall back on, and you're getting a stipend still. So, I mean, the value of all of that, if you tear your ACL, rip your Achilles or something, then you have something you can at least fall back on. So I don't think you need, especially if you're just going for 1 year in the realm of the NBA and basketball, I don't think you need to be paid. I don't think it's pressing that I need to be paid. I'm not making any money for a year. Well, most college kids are going into extreme debt and they pay their debt off the rest of their lives working. Like, that's part of life at this point. You're about to go make millions of dollars for 8 months of college. But in the case of, football, where you have to go for 3 years, it's more understanding there for the whole get paid for your likeness thing, because you're going to be there for a longer amount of time, but you're still being treated well. You're getting an education, and a lot of these kids are graduating in 3 years, so you're getting a degree. It's all free. Books are paid for. You're getting a stipend. You've got most of these elite schools where these elite players, which is the main group we're talking about of paying, the major driving force behind all this discussion. You're getting treated well with great facilities. You're fed. You get to go travel places. You get free clothing and shoes and stuff like that. You get a stipend. I mean, you're not having to pay for all this, and you're not living in the slums or the worst dorms on campus. I mean, you're treated almost like a king. And yes, you got to go work in school some and practice, but you know that going in. Like, that is just part of it. If you want a pro career in football, you know what you have to do to obtain that. You know the rules in place, set in place by the employer that you are looking to go work for. It's the same as anything else. If an engineering company requires you have a bachelor's degree, then you go to school, you get that bachelor's degree, and you go work for that employer potentially. I mean, you know the rules are in place, not by the NCAA, but by those employing those jobs, those employers, those businesses, whatever. So the notion that, the NCAA should be paying all these student athletes, they just work so hard and they should make money off their likeness and this, that, and the other. Look, I get the likeness thing to a degree. Well, all these coaches are making millions and they could just leave whenever. Well, guess what? Those coaches are grown men. They have worked to get to where they are. They had to go to school to get a degree. They had to do the same thing these student athletes are doing. They have worked to obtain and get to that point where they can make those choices on their own and they've earned that money they're making. Now, when they just leave whenever they want, you could do that in the real world. But why should these student athletes be automatically entitled? And it's, like I said, just the elite ones for the most part that we're talking about here. Why, before they have proven a single thing, should they just automatically be granted the right to just make money because the adults of the world that have already done what they haven't done yet and earned their spot in life where they're at, they should be treated the same because of that? Like, that, it's not equal. That's apples and oranges. I think we make all these excuses and try to twist things to fit an argument that really isn't there. It doesn't, it's not equal to me. Look, I don't like that coaches can just up and leave whenever they want and, pretty much do what they want. But that's their right. They've earned that right. They've worked to get to that spot in their lives. They had to go get a degree. They had to play football. They had to play they had to learn the game, and they earned where they're at. So they shouldn't be treated the same. Like the boss of the CEO of Apple, if I'm a brand new guy going in, an intern, I should demand to be, paid a certain amount as a manager or a general manager at an Apple store or something as an intern because I'm smart and I know I can do the job and I know I'm a quick learner. So I should just be able to walk in there and get paid the same as him, not have to actually earn anything or just pay my dues and then get to that point one day. What happened to earning things? I mean, I get these student athletes make sacrifices that the majority of most just typical college students don't make. But it's not like those typical college students don't make sacrifices. Most of them are having to pay their way through college, and they're going to be paying off those student loans for the rest of their lives. At the very least, that's a bigger sacrifice than 3 years of not getting paid for your likeness while your tuition's free, your food's free, you're getting free clothing and gear, you're getting free trips to all these crazy places, you get to play a sport you love, and you're getting a stipend. You are still getting some kind of money, some kind of payment. I just think this society as a whole is just, warped our minds that we're just, some of these people are just deserving of things right out of the gate. You don't have to earn anything. I just don't see why why some people feel so strongly about this and can use some of these excuses without thinking that actually really doesn't make sense. And it's mostly it's driven by these adults who have been out of college forever and these former college athletes that didn't make it in the NFL or didn't make it in the NBA or something, and now they're upset about it and say, well, I could have been making money off my likeness when I was actually good in college. I should have been getting money and getting paid for that because I wasn't good enough to make it once I went pro. Those are the ones who are really making this case. So I'm sorry. I can't help it if you don't make it in the sport. Sure, you'd like to be profiting while in college, but most students aren't. Most students are going into debt. I'm in debt. My wife's in debt from college. And just because we are doesn't negate their right for thinking we should be paid just the same as student athletes making sacrifices as far as workload. Well, normal students are making sacrifices as well. I mean, it's never going to be even. There's never going to be a all-around equity. There's always going to be a dirty underbelly. And I think if you open up this Pandora's box of paying players or allowing them to make money off their likeness, it's really only going to be for a select few people, really, anyways. So you're opening Pandora's box for the few. And thus leaving open even more ways to dirty up the game. Because these kids coming out of high school, there may be a place in Alabama or Ohio State or Clemson that can pay a little bit more than a business at another place and say, hey, we'll pay you a little bit extra. Come do this commercial if you choose Clemson or if you choose Alabama. Or like the schools with more money or the boosters around the area of those schools that they're a fan of that, can offer up a little more. Well, that could lead to people picking schools for payment reasons, and maybe if this becomes legal, then that'll just be part of it. But do you really want that? I mean, there's already becoming a little bit more of a lack of parity in college football, seemingly, and in college basketball, you'd think so, but really there's not, because I mean the terms are less. You're only there for a year if you want to leave. I just think we're not really thinking deeply about this. We're looking at the surface level and not not actually examining the full aspect of what these student athletes are actually being granted when they go to college. And the whole reason they're actually in college in the first place has nothing to do with college or NCAA itself. It has to do with their career pursuits, their personal choices. So because an elite athlete can walk in and say, hey, I want to play football, so I deserve to be paid while I'm here and deserve to make money off my likeness. In general society, yes, you are, but there's rules in place, and you know those rules are in place if you want to go pursue this career. So why should just this one entity change all the rules for a small percentage of people because they think they deserve it before they've even proven it? Before they've had time to actually earn it, before they've paid their dues, like most of us have, like the majority of people have. We have to quit trying to tinker with things and change rules for the minority because they're being louder than the majority. The minority is always going to be louder. They have to be. And that's fine. But that doesn't mean we go changing every rule and bending every rule for it. I mean, at some point, you just got to stick your heels in the ground and say, look, this is it. If you want to play in the NFL has rules in place that you have to be in college or out of high school, whatever it is, for 3 years. You know the rules. If you can't handle that or if you don't want to, then tough luck. You can just go lift weights for 3 years and hope that your football skills are good enough to make the NFL. And when they're not, you don't have an education to fall back on, so you're just going to be working your standard 9 to 5 most likely, or going to a factory, and nothing's wrong with those jobs. But if you want to play a professional sport and have a chance at making 7 figures, which is more than the majority of people in this country are going to ever see in their life, you can't sacrifice just 3 years of being treated well, of getting a free education, being fed great, getting to take trips for free, getting free gear, getting a stipend, free housing. You can't sacrifice 3 years of that to go potentially make 7 figures. I'm sorry, I just don't see the logic in that. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Give me your thoughts. I'd like to hear what other people have to say after hearing that. I'm just trying to give a different perspective that I haven't heard anybody really talking about or mentioning in the national media, local, whatever. I just wanted to give my perspective of it, and I think my perspective is one that is not talked about enough, or I haven't heard it anywhere. Maybe it's not talked about at all. But if you would just give me your thoughts about it, what do you think? Do you think pairs should be played? You have the right to your opinion. We don't have to agree on everything. We can have an adult-like debate. But I don't need anybody come and say, "Oh well, you're one to talk. Why shouldn't players? Who are you to tell players they shouldn't be paid and this, that, and the other?" I'm nobody. I'm just giving my opinion, just the same as you would. So let's have a legit conversation about it. Tell me what you think. This has been a side note with the Evening Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Austin Silvey, live from Studio 133. Stay tuned in the future to more podcasts coming up. I'm out.